Hello, dear my friends. I'm David Lam. I am an economist, and I'm also a long-term sufferer from a condition called hay fever. Do you get a stuffy and running nose, watery and itchy eyes, non-stop sneezing, and even chronic headache, especially when it's a pollen season like the spring and the fall? If so, you may have seasonal allergic rhinitis, also known as seasonal allergy or hay fever. Technically, it is not really a kind of fever, but overreaction of our body caused usually by exposure to allergens like the pollens of flowers, grass, and tree. That is why it's called seasonal. If your nose runs year-round and you may have a different classification of allergic disorder called the perennial rhinitis, which is usually caused by exposure to other kinds of allergens such as mold, dust mites, or animal dander. Either kinds of allergic rhinitis can be a hassle, and the symptom could significantly impact on the quality of our life. I believe most of the audience have already heard from conventional medicine that the cause of allergy is that our immune system is mistakenly identifying harmless particles as harmful intruder and setting off alarms that result in our running nose, sneezing, all kinds of uncomfortable symptoms. I have suffered a seasonal allergy for over 20 years. It really started when I went to United States to study for my first degree. Over the years, the conventional medicine have not done much good to me. Instead, it prolonged my agony for too many years. As I have suffered from seasonal allergy for more than 20 years, I have felt the pain, the frustration, the embarrassment. I know what you're going through if you have this condition too. And the worst part about this is that lots of treatments that were supposed to help us combat these annoying conditions, but they just simply don't work or just work temporarily. I have tried and have the native pot kind of saline water for a whole year, antihistamine, steroid, nasal spray, allergy shot, and the last option for me was having laser procedure done in my nose strip to seal all the pores. Because my allergy season lasts for two periods of 2 months in the spring and in the fall. That means 4 months every year. 1/3 of my life is being wasted to deal with the symptoms. I was not really functional during those periods. That was pretty bad. And the worst is that I was developing asthma and was short of breath quite often. I even have accepted that this is the condition I have to live throughout the rest of my life. Not until my junior high teacher got pulmonary fibrosis, and she was pretty much issued a death warrant from her doctor, asking her to go home to live for another 2.5 to 5 years without any medication. As a desperate measure, she did her own research and went to Beijing, China, to seek for alternative medicine to heal her situation. After 6 months treatment of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM for short, she was miraculously recovered. She is living very well now and pursuing her doctoral degree. As an economist, I always look for the most effective and efficient way to solve problems. Now, equipped with some medical and pharmacy knowledge that I acquired during my younger age inspiration to become a doctor, and a mother who happened to be in the herbal business for 3 decades, and a group of friends who also share the similar allergic conditions. I then have done a good amount of research, study, analysis, and testing. After a few years of work, I believe I have a set of explanation and solution generic enough for the segment of population who share this specific health issue. I would like to assure you that even though allergy is genetically built in, some people are simply more prone to be overreact to the external particles. But these conditions can be managed, could be contained, and we don't have to suffer from the allergic rhinitis. But the solution does not lie in the conventional medicine. Indeed, most of that will just make the situation worse. Let's begin by taking a closer look of allergic rhinitis with the conventional medicine, and I will share with you what works and what doesn't, and why. So what is allergic rhinitis? Allergic just means that it's caused by allergen and the outside particle that ignite the reaction of our body. The part of the word rhi comes from the Greek root that means nose like rhinoceros, and itis just means inflammation. The classical inflammation characteristics are redness, swollen, hot, pain, and unfunctional part of your body. So allergic rhinitis means an inflammation of the nose. By knowing more about the details of how the allergic rhinitis happens, you will then have a better understanding and hopefully can make better judgment for what course of action that you should take to heal the condition rather than manipulated by the big pharmaceutical firms. So let's go ahead and draw our nose here to see how rhinitis happens. This is the outside of the nose, and the inside of the nose is covered with a smooth lining called mucosa. Mucosa line everything inside our nose, and actually it extends to other cavities connected to the nose as well. That is why the nasal rhinitis then spread out and cause many complications if not managed well. But mucosa is not totally smooth. There are some bones that stick out that called concha. They are called concha because they are just like those little snail shells. So I'll draw this like that. Concha kind of stick out from the side of the wall of the nose, and they pretty much take up most of the space in here. Now, in order to understand what's happening a little bit better, we will need to zoom into this structure at the level of the cells. Well, the language could be a little bit foreign to you if you are not in biology or medical field, but don't worry, most people are not. I will do my best to make it understandable. That is also the reason I spend so much time to make two-screen video in order to make this clear to you. So these are some of those cells of the nasal mucosa. They are big globular cells. But there are a couple of cells here, they are different. And these are cells of our immune system, supposed to defend us from the foreign harmful object like virus, bacteria, fungus. The one that we are worried about, the immune cell in the nose that deal with allergic rhinitis, are called mast cell or basophil. So let's say this particular person would overreact to allergen like pollen or dust mite. Let's see how a minor allergy can then develop into allergic rhinitis and cause the problems now and later. So let's say this group of the cell, they are sitting here to protect us, moist and warm the air we breathe, but somehow, some way, it sucks up some particles that act like an allergen. This is when the allergen goes into the nose, and that allergen is going to come into contact with this mast cell or basophil right here. For each mast cell or basophil on its surface, it has a particular protein that is sort of like Y-shaped. And this protein is an antibody called an immunoglobulin, which is shortened to Ig. There are a few types of immunoglobulins depending on their shapes. The one here that we are concerned about is IgE, the Y-shaped antibody. Let's assume this allergen is a pollen here, and it's going to get bound by this IgE. And this IgE protein sitting on the surface of its basophil is going to alert the surrounding cells on the presence of this allergen. To most people, the reaction that this cell initiated should be very minimal, maybe something like a sneeze and get the pollen out. That's it. Because basically, it is just a grain of pollen, not like it's an infectious bacteria or virus that is going to go in and cause our body all sorts of troubles. But for a person that suffers from allergic rhinitis, he or she actually is genetically built in to overreact, and the IgE overreact big time. When it sees that the pollen grain, it started letting out little molecule into its surrounding cells and instructing them to get excited and alert as well. So this whole group of nasal mucosa get overreacted altogether. The most common type of molecule that is used for signaling here is called a histamine. So now that this immune cells are overreacting and causing all the surrounding cells to overreact to its allergen, we can pretty much predict what's going to happen inside the nose on a larger scale. Well, first of all, the first thing is that the histamine is going to cause all sorts of problems with inflammation, and that could be really severe. Because these basophil or mast cells aren't just sitting in on one particular area, they are scattered everywhere in the nose. The mucosa could thicken up enormously quickly. And that happens all throughout the mucosas of the nose. The person will have stuffy nose and congestion by then. Let me draw some of those information on these ridges in the nose, the tabullates. And the inflammation is happening everywhere. In order to becoming swollen, this mucosa is going to start to overproduce mucus. And that mucus is going to drip down along the tabullates. It's going to drip down the side of the nose here. It's going to form a big drip that hang out inside your nose and sometimes outside too. You know what I mean if you had that problem. There will be some of those space on those cavity here and a few drip of mucus. Well, now even the mucus is usually clear. I would like to use green color for a purpose you'll know in the future. Anybody that suffer from allergic rhinitis knows that the mucus could come right from the nose here. Of course, our nose is not an isolated thing. It is connected to a few cavities, and now the nasal rhinitis is going to affect all of them to different levels. As this mucus pull in your nasal cavity, it's going to head down in this way towards the person's throat, and the person will cough up this stuff as well. The process has not yet stopped at this stage. In fact, there's a tube that lies right about here that open up just underneath these first ridges, right about there. What happens is that the mucosa swell up. It can swell and shut the tube out. And that tube is called the nasal lacrimal duct. It connects our nose to our eyes. Its job is to drain the tears out of our eyes and into our nose in a way that most of us don't even notice them. Now, when the nasal lacrimal duct gets swollen and shut, the tears don't have nowhere to go now, and that will lead to watery eyes, another symptom for typical allergic rhinitis. How about someone have stuffiness and decreased ability to hear or even ear inflammation? It is because another tube that can be affected at the back of our throat, and that is eustachian tube connected to our ears. And similarly, if the mucosa is swollen and gets bad enough, it can block off this tube and cause the fluid to back up in here. And don't forget, nerve is everywhere in our body, and when there's an inflammation in the nasal cavity, it will know. Let's say one of those nerves going off to the tibulate here. This nerve ultimately ends in our brain. And as they get inflamed with all the process that is happening in our nose, they become irritated and send signal in our body, particularly to sneeze. And then if the swelling continues to getting bigger and more serious, sooner or later it can actually completely block off this entire nose. And when that happens, even air cannot get by. And when air cannot get by, breathing becomes a problem. And we will start to use our mouth to breathe. And that will lead to very serious problem later on. Besides, it will lead to chronic headache. So let's recap the symptoms. First, the person with seasonal or perennial allergic rhinitis gets swelling and congestion in the nose. When the nasal mucosa is continually making mucus, we get running nose or nasal drips. If the nasal swelling block off the nasal lacrimal duct, the person get watery eyes. The irritated nerve will cause sneezing and they block the air passage. If it goes serious enough, lead to difficulty breathing through the nose. If the swelling block off the eustachian tube, we get stuffed up ears. And all these symptoms are going to vary from person to person. It is genetically built how sensitive we are towards the allergen. Some people's immune system can go very reactive. So all these symptoms happen to them all together and all the time. Someone like me, Other people may just have a little bit nasal drip and that's all. It all depends on the person. It can happen for a few days during the season or it can happen year-round if the person is allergic to many different kinds of allergens. Additionally, sometimes it's really easy to figure out what the allergen is and sometimes the person don't even know he or she has allergy, but think that they have a common cold instead. Some people may still wonder why they have a runny nose in the morning and it all got better in the afternoon. But that is allergy. Sometimes it's really hard, really difficult to determine a person have allergy and pin down exactly what the allergen is. But if you remember the underlying principle and the process of the overreactive immune cell sitting in your nose, and you know a little bit about the anatomy of the nose now, I hope this can help you to determine if you have allergy and take action to manage that. In the next video, we are going to discuss the conventional methods to diagnose allergy and the overview of various treatments. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.